My name is Rachel Cohen. I'm 36, the lead software engineer at Valence Data, a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, Texas, that specializes in data management software for retail chains. I've been here for 8 years, and I'm the one who architected and built NovaCore, the real-time data processing engine that now drives nearly 80% of the company's revenue. I'm Israeli-American, born in Colorado, with a degree in computer science from MIT. I've done freelance work for a few tech companies before I found my place at Valence. I'm not flashy, not a glory chaser. I build systems, I solve problems, I write code. That's who I am. But Marcus Whitman, our CEO, never quite saw me that way. Marcus is old school. Built this company out of a college dorm, now runs it from a top-floor office with glass walls and walnut desks. Always polite, always distant. Never once called me by my name, our lead engineer, her team. Always a safe arm's length, just enough to not get called out, but enough for me to feel the message loud and clear. I remember one lunch with Japanese investors. I gave a quick demo on NovaCore, showed how we process region-based data in real time. After I sat down, Marcus smiled and said, "Rachel tends to keep certain technical layers close to the chest. We're working on fostering a more open and collaborative culture." The investors nodded politely, but the silence that followed was louder than any applause. That wasn't the first time. I used to think I was imagining things. Until I dug deeper. Turns out Marcus had once invested in an Israeli startup more than a decade ago. It went belly up after a nasty intellectual property dispute, cost him nearly $2 million. People close to him said it was the only black mark on his otherwise flawless record. Since then, he's had a thing about control and intellectual transparency, especially when the project lead looks like me. April of that year, I started noticing things changing. I stopped getting invites to strategy meetings. Internal reports I used to sign off on were suddenly under review by a new tech consulting group. In an internal memo, I spotted a name I didn't recognize, Alexa Whitman. The last name made me pause, and sure enough, she was Marcus's only daughter. I didn't meet her until a Tuesday morning meeting. Marcus had called me upstairs for what he called a product vision check-in. I walked in laptop, ready to present the next rollout, but there she was, Alexa, already seated, laptop open, smiling like she was the one running the meeting. "Rachel, I'd like you to meet Alexa. Marcus said she'll be taking on a digital transformation advisory role for NovaCore." I shook her hand. It was slim firm, and her gaze confident. Almost too confident for someone who hadn't sat through a single sprint or pulled a single all-nighter debugging. "Looking forward to learning from you," she said, but it sounded less like humility and more like a quiet claim of ownership. That night I checked my system access logs. My admin privileges had been reduced. Key modules I built were now read-only. When I emailed IT, they replied it was part of a CEO-approved internal audit. I sat in my office until well past midnight, my mind spinning. Not out of surprise, but because I could see the direction this was headed. I could have stayed quiet. I could have walked away. But I thought about the sleepless nights, the bugs only I knew how to kill, and all the times I was overlooked or dismissed. No, they weren't going to erase me from my own creation. The next morning, I called Nora, a tech intellectual property attorney I met at a Boston conference. I told her I want to register authorship of the original NovaCore framework, the version I designed before company funding, complete, with timestamps, commit logs, and early architecture sketches. Nora took 2 weeks to pull it all together. We filed with the US Copyright Office covering core algorithms, design blueprints, and architectural models, anything not fully commercialized, when I signed my contract. I told no one. I didn't make a scene. I kept working like everything was fine, but inside the countdown had already begun. 3 weeks after Alexa officially joined Valence, I'd all but vanished from internal company chatter. No more strategy meetings, no requests for my input on product direction. Reports that once came straight to me were now rerouted through Alexa, someone who had never written a single line of code but was suddenly dubbed the face of innovation. The whispers around the office got louder. Engineers murmured about how Alexa walked into stand-ups like she ran the roadmap. Some were told to attend meetings without me. Then one day, I found a printout on the shared copier, Strategic Overhaul Realigning Novacore for Performance and Executive Vision, listed under lead contributor Alexa Whitman. I took the sheet back to my desk and opened a blank document. I began tracking every shift, access changes, code-based duplications, personnel reshuffles. Simon, a back-end engineer who'd been with me for 3 years, quietly started forwarding me recent commits. Rachel, they're testing a clone of Nova Core written by someone else. It's full of bugs. But Alexa's pushing it to production. I nodded, said nothing. But I knew what was coming. And it came on a bright Thursday morning. The system crashed. 3 major clients lost access to real-time sales data for nearly 4 hours. Panic rippled across departments. IT rebooted servers. Chaos everywhere. But the moment I saw Nova Clone, see Man Alexa's out 9 in the deployment logs, I already knew the cause. I walked straight into the executive war room at 9:18 a.m. The emergency meeting had just started. Marcus was at the head of the table, calmly briefing senior leaders and investors. We regret this morning's disruption. We're transitioning the platform architecture, and a few modules may still be stabilizing, I interrupted, cool and controlled. Excuse me, Marcus, those modules weren't part of my build. They were untested code pushed without full QA. I requested a review weeks ago after my access was downgraded. No one responded. Heads turned. Marcus didn't flinch, but I saw the vein at his temple tighten. Rachel, this isn't the time for finger-pointing. Let's remain professional. I placed a file on the table, error logs, server entries, and an email from the QA lead dated 3 weeks prior. Cannot guarantee stability of experimental branch. Recommend halting deployment. Silence. Marcus gave a tight nod, a micro-admission, then quickly pivoted, calling Alexa into the room to continue the resolution presentation. I walked out, nothing left to say. I knew he wouldn't publicly blame me, but the consequences, they were already in motion, and they landed the next morning. HR summoned me to the 5th floor. Marcus sat at the table waiting, a memo in front of him. Rachel, we're placing you on a 2-week leave, not a suspension, just a pause for internal review and quality assurance alignment. I smiled slightly, crossed my legs, pulled a brown envelope from my bag. Before you pause me, you might want to take a look at this. Inside was a document from the US Copyright Office confirming that I Not Valence held the authorship rights to the original Nova Core framework, the architecture, the algorithms, the design documents, the IP assets that weren't part of the company's commercial platform at the time of my signing. Marcus read it, eyes unmoving. It took him nearly a full minute to respond. This needs legal review. I stood, adjusted my blazer, and walked to the door. Novacore doesn't separate from me that easily, Marcus. And I'm not going anywhere. That evening, I called Nora. Initiate phase 2. Let's file the infringement notice. Her response was short, already drafted. I didn't show up to the office that Monday. I didn't need to. Instead, I sent an email to Marcus at exactly 7:43 a.m., attaching an official letter from Nora, my attorney, stating that Valence Data was currently in breach of intellectual property law by continuing to use elements of the NovaCore framework registered under my name. The letter formally requested that all activity involving the software be halted until a legal review could be completed. I knew Marcus wouldn't reply right away. He's the kind of man who rewrites his own legal memos rather than delegate to the professionals. But he didn't need to reply. The first hit had landed, and I knew he felt it. By 9 a.m., my phone rang. Not Marcus. It was Sheila Tran, the company's CFO. Rachel, I've been briefed. Would you be open to coming in to talk this through face-to-face? We'd like to keep this in-house if possible. I declined, politely, firmly, because I knew they still didn't understand the scale of what was coming, or worse, they did, and were hoping I'd blink first. The next morning, Valence issued an internal memo. We are working with an independent legal advisor to verify the ownership of certain software components, careful language, damage control. But within hours, Simon texted me, they shut down the Nova Core endpoints. Clients are calling non-stop. I didn't reply. I was already in a meeting with Nora. We outlined the next move, filing a cease and desist on further deployment and quietly alerting certain investors about the pending legal complications. I didn't want a drawn-out lawsuit. I wanted them to realize that if they wanted Novacore, they had to go through me. 3 days later, I received an official invitation to a private meeting with the company's board of directors. No Marcus, no Alexa. In a quiet, carpeted boardroom, I sat across from 5 faces. Some I'd shaken hands with at company parties, others I barely recognized. But none had ever remembered my name, unless a bug report was overdue. Sheila was the first to speak. Rachel, first off, we want to express our regret if you feel you've been treated unfairly. Your contributions to Novacore are undeniable. We'd like to understand what you're really looking for. I met their eyes without flinching. Novacore is my creation. I don't want to destroy it, but I also won't let it be stolen. A man named Mr. Lee, representing one of the main investor groups, leaned in. What evidence do you have that the company has violated your ownership rights? I handed him a thick color-coded file, Git logs, timestamps, early design docs, email records from years ago when I first pitched the framework, well before the company adopted it commercially. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. I continued. I'm not looking to sue. I'm open to a licensing agreement on the condition that I retain full technical oversight and approval rights. A woman named Karina from the International Fund asked calmly, and if the company doesn't agree, I looked directly at her. Then I'll file for a full injunction, and your flagship product shuts down. Permanently. A pause. Long. Then Sheila nodded slowly. We'll take that under serious consideration and be in touch shortly. Later that evening, Alexa showed up at my apartment. Uninvited, unannounced. She wore a light grey suit, her hair tied back, and a look that was far from the smug confidence I remembered. I wanted to talk. I didn't invite her in, just stood in the doorway. Talk here. She hesitated. I know I didn't earn that role, and I know what I did pushed you out. I didn't expect it to go this far. I folded my arms. You thought that you'd just take over the framework, slap your name on it, and call it innovation. It wasn't all my idea. My dad wanted to fast-track me. I cut her off. I don't care whose idea it was. This stopped being personal the moment you tried to replace me with a PowerPoint and a marketing campaign. She looked down ashamed, then left. And I stood there, not angry, not triumphant, just still. Because I knew this wasn't over. This was the calm before the legal storm. The following Monday, Valence issued a formal internal announcement. All development and deployment of Novacore would be suspended pending legal review of intellectual property ownership. They framed it as a precautionary step to ensure compliance and maintain client trust. I read the statement on my laptop and let out a small, humorless laugh. Behind that calm language was a full-blown crisis. Their core system was frozen. Major clients were demanding answers, and the executive team couldn't release a single update without my signature. I hadn't stepped into the office for weeks, but updates still made their way to me. Simon texted that several flagship clients were delaying renewals. A junior UI engineer I once mentored messaged an apology for not speaking up sooner. I didn't blame them. They were just small cogs in a machine designed to erase people like me. That Wednesday, Marcus finally broke his silence. He emailed me directly, Rachel, I believe both sides recognize this situation has escalated. I'm ready to sit down and negotiate. No conditions. Marcus. I forwarded the message to Nora. She replied within minutes. Told you he'd blink. The meeting took place Friday morning at a quiet downtown hotel. Marcus arrived with Sheila and a corporate attorney. Nora was there with me. He looked different. No sharp suit, no carefully curated swagger, just a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves and tired eyes. It was the first time I'd seen him look human. He started the meeting. "Rachel, I won't deny mistakes were made. I let past biases cloud my judgment. I'll take responsibility." I remained silent. As Nora laid out our terms, Valence would formally acknowledge my ownership of the original Nova Core framework. Any commercial version moving forward would operate under a license agreement reviewed and approved by me. Additionally, I would retain full technical oversight and have the authority to appoint a new technical lead. Marcus didn't argue. He glanced at Sheila, who gave a subtle nod. "We agree, on the condition that you consider returning in a senior advisory role." I looked him in the eye. "No, I'm not coming back as an engineer." They looked confused except Nora. She already knew. I reached into my bag and pulled out a scanned agreement. 3 weeks ago, I'd partnered with Karina, the investor from the previous board meeting. Together, we formed a holding company and quietly purchased 22% of Valence's outstanding shares from small nervous stakeholders. Add to that the 4% I already owned from my equity bonuses and a strategic agreement with a Boston venture group. I now held controlling interest. "I'm not here to negotiate a role," I said. "I'm here to change how this company treats people like me." Marcus leaned back. For the first time, no resentment, no defensiveness, just quiet resignation. "Then I suppose it's time I step aside." I didn't respond. Some endings don't need commentary. The board formally appointed me as interim chief technology officer the following week. The announcement came with a statement about realigning leadership to reflect modern values and technical integrity. Alexa left quietly, but not before sending me a single text, "I'll step away. I hope someday you'll see I wasn't just trying to take your place." I didn't answer. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even vindicated. Mostly I just felt tired, because none of this should have happened. If this company had recognized value over legacy, I wouldn't have had to use the law to reclaim what I built. Late one evening, I walked into the CEO's old office. The windows looked out over downtown Austin, golden with late sun. I opened my laptop. In the first directory, I renamed a folder Rachel's Way. A reminder that in tech, when the system's not built for you, survival isn't just about skill, it's about strategy. On tech blogs and internal industry memos, my name started popping up more often. Not because I was now Valence's CTO, but because I had done something few in my position had ever dared. I reclaimed intellectual ownership legally, methodically, and without a single dramatic headline. Tech media called me the silent engineer who beat the system. A financial paper ran the headline, "From off the payroll to the power seat." I wasn't chasing the attention, but I understood the power of it. Because once I had been the woman they kept off meeting invites out of group chats and away from leadership mixers, Valence was in transition. With me in charge of technical direction, the culture began to shift slowly, unevenly, and not without resistance. I noticed the sideways glances, the cancelled meetings, the accidental miscommunications. One manager even emailed me directly. Under previous leadership, this wouldn't have been a problem. I replied with a single line that leadership no longer applies. I began rebuilding the team, reaching out to former engineers who had been quietly pushed out during past restructurings. One of them was Maya, a brilliant data engineer of Iranian descent. Alexa had once cut her from a project, claiming she wasn't strategically aligned. When Maya walked back into the Valence lobby, I was there waiting. She hugged me tight, her voice shaking. I thought I'd never step foot in this place again. I smiled. This time we write the rules. In the first board meeting under my leadership, I proposed scrapping the traditional performance review model. No more top-down evaluations. Instead, we rolled out peer reviews, engineers evaluating engineers, actual work measured by those who understood it best. Some executives balked. They said I was trying to turn Valence into some idealistic experiment. So I showed them the numbers. In the 5 years before my return, female engineers were 2.3 times more likely to quit voluntarily. 70% left within 18 months of hire. You call that reality, I asked. They didn't respond. 4 months later, Nova Core 3.0 launched. For the first time, each module listed the names of its contributors on the interface in the documentation and on every customer-facing dashboard. It wasn't just transparency, it was justice. I put my name last, small font, still visible. That same day, an email landed in my inbox, no subject line, from Marcus. I read the latest release, better than I ever imagined. I was wrong about a lot. And if losing to you is what it took to realize it, then I don't regret the outcome. I didn't reply, but I read it twice, then again, then shut my laptop and watched the office lights fade one by one across the floor where I once felt invisible. Now I controlled it not to dominate, but to make sure no one else had to fight like I did. One Friday evening, after speaking at a Women in STEM panel, a college student approached me. "What's the hardest part about being a woman in tech?" she asked. I thought for a moment. Realizing you don't need to become one of the men to get recognized. You just need to make sure they can't ignore who you already are. She nodded, eyes wide, full of possibility. That night, I opened my laptop and added a final line to my keynote slides. Justice doesn't come from power, it comes from preparation. And I had spent nearly a decade preparing for that moment. I used to think justice was the destination. But now, sitting at the heart of a company that once tried to erase me, I understand justice is just the starting point. The real journey is rebuilding the system that made erasure possible in the first place. 3 months after Nova Core 3.0 launched, Valence entered a period of unprecedented growth. Legacy clients returned. New deals closed at 20% higher margins. But this time, there were no Marcuses, no Alexas, no one standing behind the curtain pulling strings while others did the work. Instead, I had Simon present our technical vision. I asked Maya to lead live QA sessions. And when a client asked who architected the new platform, I pointed to the team. "We don't stand behind our product," I said. "We stand beside it, together." In late September, I was invited to speak at a tech conference in Seattle, the panel Intellectual Property and Intellectual Presence. Under warm lights on a minimalist stage, I shared my story not as a warning, but as a blueprint. I didn't dramatize, I didn't villainize, I simply walked them through it how a company built on legacy almost deleted its own future, and how I stopped it one clause, one timestamp, one quiet refusal at a time. I didn't reclaim my place by shouting louder, I said. I did it by being more prepared, more precise, and more patient than anyone expected. Sometimes when a system is designed to exclude you, you don't play the game. You rewrite the rulebook. The applause wasn't what moved me. It was the look on the face of a girl in the front row, probably 20, maybe studying comp sci, who saw herself in my story and realized she didn't have to wait to be allowed in. 3 months later, I received a message from Valence's board. "Following continued growth and client retention under your leadership, the board unanimously approves. Transitioning your interim role to permanent CEO." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I pulled open a drawer in my apartment, the one with all the old notebooks and scribbles from the early Nova Core days. On top was a dog-eared page, the first sketch of the architecture I created alone, with no backing, no title, no protection. I looked at it for a long time, then I nodded. The day I stepped into the CEO's office for real, Alexa wasn't there. But there was a note waiting for me. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten letter. "This is a prototype I once dreamed of building, but never had the skills to start. If you know a young female engineer who does maybe give her the chance I thought I earned." Losing the seat helped me see I hadn't. A. I kept the letter. Not because I forgave her, but because someone else might need the opportunity she was handed and mishandled, and now I decide who gets those chances. Yes. 2 years later, Valence became one of the top 3 real-time data firms in the US. Inside the executive suite hangs a photo, our original Nova Core team. Everyone in that photo once heard they didn't belong. Now they run the company. At a press conference, a reporter asked me, "What's your advice to women who feel invisible at work?" I looked into the camera. Make your silence the thing they fear most. Because behind it is preparation they never saw coming. They used to call me our engineer. Now I sign deals, write product visions, lead hiring panels, and teach a whole new generation of women that no one gets to reduce them to a title. Your name belongs on the code, on the license, on the door, and most importantly, on the story you've rewritten yourself.